All right, so let's go ahead and get started in our study tonight. Tonight we're going to be delving into the minor prophets. We've just looked at the five major prophetic books, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel, and of course the book of Lamentations, which goes along with Jeremiah. And so now we're going to delve into the minor prophets, and we're going to take a look at Hosea, which was written before all of them. Hosea was written right before Isaiah. Isaiah and Micah came just after Hosea, and he preached at a time where I believe Amos and who was Jonah and a couple of others were prophets at around the time. But there's something different about Hosea. Hosea isn't like the other prophets. Whereas Isaiah was one of the elites of the nation of Israel and the city of Jerusalem. He was royalty to a large degree. Jeremiah had standing in both the palace and the temple. Daniel was one of the elites who was taken from Jerusalem by Babylon. Likewise with Ezekiel. That's not the case with Hosea. Hosea is not a temple prophet. He is a lay prophet. He's somebody who God just chose and said, okay, here's what I have for you. And what he had for Hosea was a tough road. He was given Hosea a tough task and a tough burden to carry, but Hosea did it well, and he represented God, and we benefit from his travails today. So that is the case of the prophets. So Hosea was a prophet to the northern kingdom. Remember, we talked about this before, that the kingdom of Israel had divided into two sections, two segments. The northern kingdom, when Solomon, towards the end of his kingdom, the kingdom was divided into 10 tribes to the north and 2 to the south, which became Judah. So King Saul struggled as a king. King David came along and he did great. Then King Solomon came along and he did great, but then he faltered. He fell into idol worship and his promiscuity detracted him from his kingdom, and his kingdom ended up divided. So there was a northern kingdom of 10 tribes, and the southern, that was called Israel, the southern kingdom of Judah. This is right around 931 BC, somewhere in that area. So now we're 2 centuries later, almost 2 centuries later. The book of Hosea takes place somewhere around 750 BC to 722 BC, somewhere in that 30-year period. And Hosea comes on the scene when the nation is flourishing on the surface. There is political stability. They have aligned themselves with allies to the north and to the south. They're prospering financially. Things seem to be going well, but underneath the surface, there is this moral, spiritual decay that's taking place. There's a rot that's taking place. Just like with Solomon, when he took wives from other kingdoms, they brought their false gods in with them and defiled the temples, and they set up high places throughout the kingdom where people would go worship their false gods. So this is now 2 centuries later of this. And when Hosea comes on the scene, things are going to start to decay politically as well. There's going to be a succession of kings. There's going to be intrigue. There's going to be murder. There's going to be backstabbing, quick, rapid-fire successions of kings, and the nation is going to collapse. And the kingdom of Assyria is going to come in and take the whole northern kingdom captive. Just like Babylon did with Judah later, the Assyrian Empire is going to come in and take Israel captive. And this is much of what Hosea is talking about. And the book of Hosea is about the unfaithfulness of the people of God in keeping their covenant that they made with God. God made a covenant with them, and we're going to see that it plays out like this, that Deuteronomy defines the covenant. The books of 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles describe the collapse of the covenant among the people of God, but Hosea is here to tell us God's heart while that's taking place. That's what Hosea is about. God calls Hosea, and he tells Hosea to go take a harlot as a wife. So he takes a harlot, and they have 3 children, and the names of those children are relevant to what God is feeling about his people. And during the course of his marriage, Hosea has to deal with this prostitute of a wife who keeps leaving him and her children to go after other men. There's one point where she is actually on the auction block, and he has to go and bid on her and buy her back from the auctioneer. We will take a look at that as we go. But this is what Hosea is about. And Hosea, he's quoted between 7 or 8, maybe 9 times in the New Testament. The New Testament writers love Hosea. But the Old Testament books, they don't quote Hosea, but they're built on his foundation. Jeremiah and Ezekiel both will use his model of the marriage to an adulteress as the relationship between God and his people. That God has pronounced a marriage with the people of God, but they keep running after other gods. And God uses this imagery to describe what the description of an adulterous marriage, to describe what's going on between him and his people. So there was political instability. There was moral rot building in the kingdom, a decay of the moral, spiritual tenor of the nation. There was this religious syncretism. The nation of Israel was assimilating other religions into the kingdom, and they had made alliances with the Assyrian Empire to the north and the Egyptian Empire to the south in defiance of what God had said. God said, look, I am your God. I am your defender. I will protect you. But they didn't rely on God. They went after foreign powers, and that irritated God as well. So the book of Hosea takes place, if you're reading through the historical books, 2 Kings chapters 15, 16, and 17 really describe what's taking place in Israel at this time. Now, Hosea is never mentioned. Like I said, he's not part of the power structure of the palace or the temple, but that's when this all takes place. The name Hosea is from the word for salvation, just like the name Jesus, just like the name Isaiah, just like the name Joshua. They all come from the same root with slightly different variations. We would call, if we were Hebrew speakers at the time, we would probably call Hosea Hosea. That would be his name, just like Jesus's name would be Yeshua. So there's a real profound similarity in the names between Hosea and Jesus. I mentioned that the New Testament writers quote him often. In Matthew chapter 2, Matthew writes that out of Egypt I have called my son. That is a direct quote from Hosea chapter 11, verse 1. So that's a direct quote. Matthew is using the words of Hosea to describe the travels of Jesus when Joseph and Mary had to flee to Egypt with him, and then they returned. Hosea 6:6, one of the most famous verses in the Bible. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. I desire compassion, not sacrifice. We will hit on that as we go through the book. In 1 Corinthians 15:55, O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? That comes from Hosea chapter 13. So very prolific, the book of Hosea. It was the foundation for the next generation of prophets to come, and it is prominent among the Gospels and the letters of Paul, and even First Peter quotes him somewhere along the way. Now, I want to talk just a little bit about what's going on in the kingdom geopolitically. We talked about the political reality. There had been stability in the nations. Jeroboam II had been the king of the north, and Uzziah the king of the southern kingdom, but they were coming to an end in their reigns, and we were going to see a lot of instability, a lot of intrigue, a lot of duplicity in the kingdom, and God's judgment is going to fall on them because of that. There was widespread worship of Baal, the false god. There was a blending of Baal worship with the worship of the one true God, which really is a real sign of our country. You know, the two nations, Israel and Judah, were prospering financially, but they were falling apart spiritually and morally. And we see this as a theme in countries. The Roman Empire, when they were expanding and at war, they were solid morally. Well, as far as morals in the Roman Empire go, but when they finished expanding, spiritual and moral decay set in. The Roman Empire was famously said wasn't defeated from without, it rotted from within. That's what happened to the Roman Empire. This is what happens to Israel and Judah, and that's what we're seeing in our country today. Our children today are wealthy, and they're spoiled, and they don't get morality. Their idea of morality is completely different than ours, because moral decay has set in. They glorify what is evil. I mean, look at the Super Bowl halftime show yesterday. They're raving about it because this guy got up there and danced and sang, but they don't even know what he was singing, and those lyrics were horrible. He was singing about terrible things, but this is what our youth glorify today. But this is the mark of our country. We have fallen spiritually and morally, and decay is setting in, and our country needs to climb out of that if we're going to survive, because the history of countries who decay morally is not good. It creates a void, and that void has to be filled by something, and that something is probably not going to be what you and I believe. Okay, the church is not going to fill the void in Washington, D.C. if Washington, D.C. falls. It's going to be something pagan, something foreign that you and I don't like, that's going to subject us more and more to the world. But the church has to be the voice of morality and of stability when this takes place, because I see it coming. I think we all see it coming. There's going to be a fall. There's going to be a collapse. I feel that that's the case, and that may lead us to the end times with the return of Jesus. If that's the case, then so be it. But the church cannot compromise. The church cannot be assimilating the wickedness of the world into the church's doors. The church has to be the keeper of the moral compass to be there for the world. Now, God uses the marriage of Hosea to be his message in this, to illustrate the adultery of the world going, or of his people going after the ways of the world and trying to assimilate in those. So as we start going through Hosea, and we're going to start Wednesday, as we start going through there, here's some things that I want you to watch for. Okay, 5 things to watch for, and 4 things to ponder as we do that. 1, God builds relationships even before he gives the rules. God is building relationships even before he gives the rules to the people. So God knows what's going on, and he knows how to be there for people. He knows how to bring those rules into play. Okay. 2nd, there's going to be this, the word to know, K-N-O-W, knowledge. We're going to come across this word several times in the texts, and we're going to linger on what that means. Because at one point, I think it's in chapter 3, maybe chapter 2. I think it's in 3. Here we go, chapter 4, verse 6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. My people perish for lack of knowledge. But knowledge has a very deep meaning in Hebrew, so we'll be taking a look at that as we go through. There's going to be this idea of discipline as rescue, and we'll take a look at that Wednesday in our first chapter. God is going to call his people to return. So that's a key theme that I want us to look for. And then the whole idea of grace is so strong in the book of Hosea. You know, how many times does Hosea's wife wander away from him and he takes her back? This is grace in the Old Testament within a century, within 250 years of David. The idea of grace is being promulgated by the prophets that God sends. So I want you to listen as we go through Hosea for the emotional language that God uses, for the image of parenting. That's going to be prominent, especially in the first 3 chapters, for the repeated calls for them to return. He wants them back. And God speaking in the first person. This isn't a third-person account. This is God speaking through the prophet Hosea, through his marriage. So I think that's all I wanted to say in the introduction. Yep, I think that's it. So we're going to leave it there, and then we'll come back here. Skip will be here tomorrow night, and we'll come back here on Wednesday, and we'll take a look at Hosea chapters 1 through 3. And if you're going to read ahead, I encourage you to read Hosea. It's 14 chapters, but it's an easy read. You can read this in half an hour. You could knock this out. Focus on verse 6 of each of these chapters. I've noticed that verse 6 of the first 6 chapters is prominent, and then the prominent verse seems to shift to verse 12 in each chapter, and then as you get towards the end, there's just big bunches of really significant verses. But verse 6 of the first few chapters kind of tell the whole story of what that chapter is about. So, all right, we'll be back here Wednesday. God bless each and every one of you. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time on Digging Deeper Daily. God bless.